My name is Faith, and I use she, her pronouns. I'm 40 years old, and I work as a clinical supervisor in a mental health outpatient clinic. I've been a therapist for about 16 years or so. I have 3 small kids. I have a 7-year-old and then twin 5-year-olds. A lot of why I feel ready to share is because I think I am learning the importance of being authentic, and it's been reinforced by the fact that I am a mom, and that my kids are watching.
It's like you have to move along.
Yeah, and it's part of the reason why I got divorced. I was in a very emotionally and mentally abusive relationship that I was married for probably 15 years or so. It symbolizes really a celebration of the challenges that have happened, me not feeling like myself, and then making the conscious choice to stop doing that and start being myself. I mean, I think on so many levels, like, I remember I was maybe 20 when I got my first tattoo, and that was even a big choice, not just because it's something, permanent, but of what that statement meant as far as going against the grain of how I was raised. Grew up very, very conservative, religious, which I want to just clarify doesn't necessarily equate to bad or unwanted. I think this has just been my experience with being in that environment. Tattoos are always seen as like, oh, you're too alternative, or how could you want something permanent on your body? And what really rings is like, your body is a temple, so why would you desecrate your body by putting something on it like that?
For sure.
Yeah.
But also, temples, as we've seen them, are very ornate and very decorated now.
Yep, for me it needs to be, the definition was like this very specific way of keeping your body a temple. Like, it didn't consider any other ways, like you just said. It's like temples are very ornate and beautiful and unique. But for me, it was like standardization of stay within these lines. And if you veer outside of those lines, then there's all the shame and guilt. And grew up in the church. My parents were raised Southern Baptist. Both of my sides of my family are all very, very conservative. Was born in California, moved to Oklahoma, moved to Washington, all before I was 5, I think, 5 or 6. Yeah.
Moved a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of people are like, "Are you a military family?" And no, my dad was in banking, so I don't know why we moved so much.
Odd.
Was in public school, evil public school, until 3rd grade, in which a class of 3rd graders, I don't remember how old you are when you're in 3rd grade, like 9, 8, something like that. A female classmate of mine told me she had a crush on me, and my parents found out about it, and they overcorrected, and then immediately took me out of school in the middle of the school year and sent me to private school. So
because somebody confessed to you
yes,
that was
a girl. Yeah. So that's kind of the level that we were dealing with. I think they were scared and made a fear-based decision. So from about 2nd or 3rd grade, literally all the way through graduate school, I went to Christian universities or Christian schools.
Mm-hmm.
So very much shaped who I was supposed to be, who I was not allowed to be.
Were you grappling with your personality and who you were at the time, or was it not yet quite there?
In a lot of ways, I don't think I realized it until I'm now reflecting back on it, but I was always seen as I was just different. than the rest of my family. I've always been very, what they would call sensitive or just really too emotional. I wear my heart on my sleeve, and that was always something that was kind of, I was told that that meant I was unwell.
Because you, okay.
Because I shared how it felt and how I expressed my emotions was different than how the rest of my family did. My family didn't talk about anything. I never saw my parents show affection. I never saw them fight. Just a lot of silence. And so when I was 10, I think it was 11, I, because of a boy, you know, told me he didn't like me anymore, we like broke up as much as you can as a 10 or 11-year-old. And my emotions were so big that I took a large amount of Tylenol, and the experience was very negatively impactful for me because the aid unit came to my house. My parents were embarrassed at the cul-de-sac. People in the cul-de-sac saw that. The EMT, I was wearing like a Christian, like a cross or something, and the EMT was like, "Are you a Christian?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, then you should know better." And it was a really quiet ride to the hospital with my mom, and then we never talked about it again. So that's about the time my self-harm started, and I didn't tell anybody about it, obviously. So.
Okay.
I don't know. It wasn't like I'm different, like one turning point. It was kind of like a bunch of little observations of how people respond and behave and how I felt like I was the outlier.
Yeah.
And then because I felt like I was the outlier, I assumed that meant that it was bad. So I feel really fortunate to have met my partner. He's probably one of the most patient people I've ever met. And he has a similar background growing up, so I think he understands the language, essentially, of expectations within that.
For sure.
Like, remember that one Bible song we were taught and how much bullshit it is?
He knows exactly what you're
like,
talking about.
Details, yep, got it. I assumed that I was broken because I was told I was broken. And the only way for me to not be broken was this one particular solution. So, forever indebted, and that just really bred the shame culture. So, how I dealt with it was my self-esteem was really bad. I interpreted things that happened in my life as my inadequacies and like, oh, it's because I'm not this enough or I'm not that enough. So I internalized it quite a bit. And then I think in some ways I rebelled as much as I felt I could within the bubble that I was in.
Yeah.
In ways that I have learned as an adult are like pretty tame, I guess you could say, but for me it was a big deal.
Yeah, can you give us some examples if you feel comfortable?
Yeah, I mean, since we're talking about everything, like premarital sex was something that was like a hard pass, but the no-no. And so even like exploring in high school, I was like, well, now I'm ruined, I'm damaged goods, like no man is gonna want to be with me because I made these choices before I was married, I didn't save myself, like all that kind of stuff. So, which then just exacerbated the shame that I already felt about being emotional.
Yeah. That sounds difficult to navigate.
Yeah, and I mean, I did all the right things. I went to, according to them, like, I graduated from private school. I went to college. I got a graduate degree. I got married to a man. I had children. Like, I continued to fit into a mold. But it still wasn't good enough because even existing and being emotional or challenging things even though I was doing all those things right, I was still not doing it well enough because I wasn't as compliant as I was supposed to be. So within like maybe not just the Christian community, but there's a belief of like, oh, if you commit suicide, you won't go to heaven. Like people that commit suicide don't go to heaven. So I think a lot of times throughout my story, I dealt with like having thoughts like I would rather not be here, or this is too hard, I want to give up, like I don't want to live anymore. And so I think I am grateful for having that kind of religious component of, well, you know, if your ultimate goal is to make God happy and go to heaven, this wouldn't be doing that. So I am, in a way, thankful for that. I no longer believe that, but it got me through, and I'm still here. So
Do you feel like that was the main reason why you didn't go all the way?
I think, yeah. Honestly, I got really depressed, like really bad. Lost any kind of sense of purpose. And because I mean, if you think about it, like if I'm falling short with how I'm being a good Christian, then it's like, what's the point? Because that's my whole purpose, is being a good Christian, and more so like winning others to Christ, like being an example of, you know, being a good Christian. Which I think, to answer your question now, it's more about like, I don't even know if I believe Jesus existed, but I don't know much beyond that. Like historically, I believe that, but if I still did believe more than that, I truly think that his whole jam was like love, period. Wasn't the dogmatic, like this, that, and the other, and the religious bullshit. It was showing up where other people were. Loving the people that were, quote, unlovable. And I think that's extremely relevant to where I find myself now, is I identify as one of those people. I am one of those people that feels unlovable. You know, I think specifically right now with what's extremely important and relevant is like all people from all countries with all backgrounds of all genders, all identities. Like it does not make sense to me, like why we can't just allow people to exist for who they are. And if we're gonna be Christ-like, then that's Christ-like. Like let's love and accept, make room for everyone.
Like you can't just pick and choose what you listen to.
No. And so I think that's when I talk about spirituality, I believe in a higher being. I don't know what that means beyond that. I mean, definitely not a man, in my opinion.
No, you don't think it's a man. You don't think it's a masculine figure.
I don't think so. I don't think it's a white man. So, so there's that. But I do feel like there's something more, and that's why I think the church. I don't even like the word church, but where I meet with other open-minded people that love people is kind of where I've landed with church. I'm pretty sure my family thinks it's a cult, but I would argue that where I came from was a cult. So
because you grew up evangelical,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's a more, I'm not as familiar, but that's a more intense part of Christianity as well, right?
It's the white evangelical church was like this whole huge movement. Essentially, it's still present, obviously, but like in the, I think early, I don't know, somewhere in the 90s, approximately, became like this really big deal. And like I said, my parents they grew up Southern Baptist in Arkansas, and so that had they had even more stringent, like, you can't play any gambling, you can't dance, you can't, of course, no alcohol, like all these really rigid, right, because that's too sexual for humans. So yeah, we want to ignore our sexuality as humans, so.
Think about that, wow.
Yeah. So, and that reminds me, when I was in school, we weren't allowed to call them school dances, so they called them non-school sponsored aerobic activities. I shit you not. That was a real thing.
I like that.
Yeah.
Paraphrasing.
Yeah. So then we had a lot of those. Actually, we had like 2 a year.
So, but what did you guys do then if you weren't allowed to
I mean, it's
dance?
dancing.
Oh.
They just didn't want to call it that because it's like it was sponsored by the parent-teacher conference, not the school itself. The school wouldn't put on anything because of their affiliation. Well, and things that are very normalized for human development were very much shaming. Like I was talking about like sexuality or like any kind of romantic this, that, or the other. Like the prescription was very specific of when you can and can't, and heaven forbid you feel anything before your wedding night, period. So I struggle with like I don't hate my parents. I think that they, as cliche as it sounds, I do think they did the best they could with what they had and what they were taught, and how they grew up. I just think as it relates to my relationship with them now, like if you know better, you do better. And yeah, well, hopefully, yeah. And what's been painful for me is even like when I think about my partner, like a lot of my upbringing was like approval seeking, like please tell me I'm okay or please tell me I'm enough. And so even as a 40-year-old, I find myself wanting my parents' approval of my partner and they just don't. So it's hard.
Yeah, I understand that.
They don't understand that their phrases like we don't get the whole trans thing. That's not like an option you can just opt into. It's like, well, first of all, that's wrong. You don't just like choose. So they don't believe that people were born the way they're born. It's like male or female. So
Yeah.
my dad at one point called him an abomination, which is
Like straight up.
not to his face, but to me.
Wow.
Oh yeah, awful stuff. So
It's not a very kind thing to say.
no, it's a horrible thing to say. But thankfully, parents of his name are very accepting. They had a hard time because they were very evangelical as well. But I mean, what I love about it is at the end of the day, they're like, this is our child, this is our son, and that supersedes or is more important than any kind of struggle they have. Yeah. Whereas my parents aren't really approaching it that way. So
Are you and his family pretty close then?
yeah, it's been, they live in Arizona, but
Still a little far.
yeah, it's been really comforting to like with the absence of my parents. And I mean, my parents still talk to them, but it's very, very broken, not safe. And honestly, it's never really been safe, but it was kind of my only option as a kid. So again, I think a part of growing up the way I grew up was very much all or nothing, black and white. Like, and so even today, I'm like, well, fuck them. Like, if they don't accept me and who I am, then I don't want to have anything to do with them. But I don't think that's what my heart wants. Like, I would love to have a relationship with my parents. I just don't know what it actually looks like if I have been told by them that they like fundamentally don't approve of or agree or have any willingness to understand who I am. So I don't know the added value of it, but I'm still trying to figure out what it looks like in practice. I do think it's complicated more so by the fact that I do have kids and they have grandkids, and a lot of that guilt still, I mean, you know, when you're like, it's reinforced for decades, it's hard to learn how to deconstruct and undo. So I feel guilty not letting them see their grandkids, but an added element of it is my mom has breast cancer, so I'm like, well, I'm a shitty daughter if I don't if I limit my interaction with her, because what my brain tells me is like, oh, well, you're just being difficult and stubborn, and it's your mom, and she might die soon, so you should just get over yourself. So I don't know. Yeah. I think grief has been a big part of it, and like little tiny daily griefs, or larger, like I've completely shifted my friend group. I have a lot of people who no longer will talk to me, which is fine. I mean, it's hurtful, but probably good. I don't really want you in my life anyway, but I think the biggest points of grief are around my parents, but I also have like anticipatory grief because so my situation with my ex-husband and our kids is it's split 50-50, and the grief I have even like on a daily basis is the information they're being given and reinforced at their dad's house is very counter to the environment that I'm trying to create. So it's like every time they go back there, I just worry.
Sure. Is he also somebody who subscribes to the beliefs that you were taught when you were growing up?
Yeah, very. I mean, he and I had very similar backgrounds. He's very much of that mindset, and I mean, on top of it is pretty racist, and so I just worry. I have sadness every time they go back there because it's like fighting a daily battle of like, what is he telling them? What are they hearing? And an added layer of difficulty for them is, so much like my story and his story, he wants them to go to private Christian school, and I'm worried about their trajectory being similar to mine. And there's a lot of grief in that, but I'm trying to choose to believe, like I said at the very beginning, like my kids are watching me. I'm modeling what love, hopefully I'm aiming to model what authentic love looks like, not conditional love. And just hoping, you know, on their own, they'll use their critical thinking skills and their observational skills to see, oh, my dad is a narcissist, so.
Yeah, that was gonna be my next question, is do you feel like having, because you didn't have that type of role model that you're providing your kids when you were growing up, so do you feel like being able to provide this for your kids is one, sort of healing for yourself to some degree, and also two, a bit reassuring because you know that you're equipping them with all the tools that they'll need to be able to not go through the path that you did, even though that's what their dad is doing for them.
I'm hopeful. I mean, I'm hoping that's the case. I mean, it's also stark contrast because, like, when I show my emotions, they come out, and I think it's still being reinforced that means that I'm not well. The fact that I express things because I'm not in control of my emotions, it appears. I have to trust that my kids are smart and attuned, and if they don't recognize things now, they will later. Of like, this is how I felt when I was around my mom. And I'm not saying I'm better than him, I just, you know, this is how I felt around my dad, and hopefully what I want is just for them to feel safe with me, like whoever they are, that they can talk to me about it, because that'll feel like success to me when my kids can share all the good, bad, and ugly with me.
For sure.
My son came home my oldest, my 7-year-old, came home the other day, and he was like, wait, so mom, like, boys can marry boys? And I was like, oh, fuck, I'm gonna be honest, but I also know this will come back to bite me in the ass, because my ex-husband is pretty, he's very creative in his way that he manipulates, and he does it through my kids. So anyway, when my son was asking that question, I stayed factual, and I was like, yes, men can marry men and women can marry women. And then his immediate response was like of disgust, and I just felt so sad.
Have you talked with them about your partner situation and all of that?
No. I don't know how to have that conversation with them. I think in little ways, I'm like, you know, everybody is, you know, unique and beautiful from the time they're born. that's what makes it amazing to have everybody just show up as their authentic selves. But as far as like specifics of individuals who are trans, it's like I don't know how to communicate that to, that's age appropriate. I don't know what language to use. I've talked to my therapist about it. And I hate that it's even a factor that I have to think about, like navigating it in an environment that they're in that's very much not supportive, both with their school and at their dad's house. So I'm trying to build a new, relationship with my partner, and having been in a emotionally abusive relationship for that long takes a toll. So having to unlearn a lot of stuff too, and anger about the fact that I have to unlearn this stuff in order to have a healthy relationship with someone else. So, but I think that's just part of life, So much more accomplished, like I worked really hard at putting this together. Very, very interesting.
You're like, you don't understand how hard I worked.
Ooh. I think just generally, I grew up very all or nothing. And I've since learned that most of life and everything that it encompasses is in the gray area, which is so challenging for someone that, if it's not all or nothing, I don't know how to make sense of it, and then I feel out of control. So I guess I'm slowly trying to learn that most of life is very gray, and as a byproduct, I will often feel out of control, and that's not necessarily a bad thing or means that I'm unsafe.
Yeah, it's just life.
Yeah, period.
For sure.
Not surprisingly, suck at boundaries. It was not really I don't want to say not an option, but it didn't really seem like an option for a very long time to have boundaries, because my whole existence was what I can do for other people and how do I fit other people's needs. So that meant I didn't really have boundaries. So boundaries are new for me. I'm still trying to figure that out. So throughout my marriage, I tried to set boundaries and they were never respected. So I think I attempted, but what I learned from it was that they weren't important, or I was wrong to have them. So I think now, as I relate to it, I'm learning if I'm going to be, quote, a healthy person, it's absolutely necessary to have boundaries. And that it's not only is it okay, it's like I will become more confident and more happy and protect my peace when I do the hard thing of potentially, I don't know, letting other people down, or people being mad at me, or disappointing them, which is rough. So trying to lean into what I know to be true of when I do this hard thing, this is the helpful repercussion of that. But I'm, kind of trying to practice, but I don't like it.
Are you comfortable talking a bit more about your scars?
Yeah. I think for me, my scars my self-harm, I can confidently say, has never been about, and I think it's a common misperception, self-harm is not necessarily equated to suicidal ideation or wanting to end your life. It's a lot more complicated and complex than that for most people, and that I would say I identify with that. For me, it was an area in which I felt like I had control when I didn't have a lot of space or options to control anything else. And I think that, combined with how deeply I felt my emotions. It felt like it met a need to express those emotions, you know, sadness, anger, self-hatred. It felt like an outlet that addressed that need, and even after, I felt almost proud, and I can't quite articulate why. But it's almost like I had a secret, or like something that felt like it was mine, that nobody else knew about, that in my mind set me apart from people who I thought would never do anything like that. So it almost reinforced that I felt different, but that was almost comforting. I would say I have a drive to do better in a lot of areas. I'm a perfectionist. So I feel I can't decide if I want to go back to school because I want to, or because I think that equates to like something to be proud of. Like, education was always, it's so fucked up, because it's like my dad would, what's that word, like false humility. He'd be like, oh, you know, I'm this kid who came from humble means and blah, 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 and, you know, I'm not really educated. He's got like a fucking doctorate. And I'm like, okay, I don't quite understand the disconnect. It's like this false humbleness that just doesn't really make sense to me. So I don't know if I want to go back to school because I actually would find benefit in it, or if I feel like that would mean, another accomplishment that would make my family proud of me, or me proud of me.
Yeah.
So that's part of it, but
Are you still considering going back to school?
yeah, I mean, I'd like to get a master's in health administration, specifically within the nonprofit sector. Because as I move more towards management and administration, like I get the therapist piece and the clinical, I feel confident in those, but it's like I don't know how to manage budgets, or I don't know how to write a grant, you know, I don't know that kind of stuff. So
For sure. Yeah, the things we don't really think about until you're in the midst of it. And you're like,
Right.
well, now I have to learn how to do all these things now.
Well, and they don't teach you any business, anything in therapy school, in graduate school for,
Really?
oh no, not at all. Like most people go into private practice and still they don't have anything about like how to work with insurance payers if you're gonna do that, or how to, you know, do your taxes, or how to run a business, for God's sake.
Oh,
Yeah, so
I totally assumed that there was at
No.
least a little bit around all of
I
that.
mean, not 10 years ago when I graduated, but maybe they've evolved, hopefully.
How has it been for you navigating a world that has so much stigma around mental health and self-harm and all of that, and having a visual reminder of those harder times for yourself that you have to carry every day?
A good question. It's almost been, whether I recognized it or not, like, again, a protective measure. Saying that I work in the mental health field almost gives me some insulation. I've always, though, I think, to my core, been an advocate for people who have felt or are understood, who, because I do very much identify, whether it's outspoken or not, like the kid that gets invalidated or misunderstood or gets bullied, or so I think it's been informed by just how I'm wired. I survived it. I feel grateful that again, like having the opportunity, having my own kids, to not repeat the same patterns, so as to help them hopefully experience life in a different, ideally more positive way.
Yeah.
Giving them tools to advocate for themselves. So I think all in all, when I look back on it, I do have a lot of grief, but I also have a lot of gratitude as a byproduct of it.
Do you feel like your choice of career was a result of your own internal struggle?
I do. I think in two ways it was. I didn't have, like, intuitively, I didn't get what I needed. And so that combined with being a highly sensitive person and just wired as an empath, I think those two things were like, well, this sounds like a really cool thing to do for work, so why don't I do that? But yeah, so I think it definitely played a huge part. My focus has shifted more into like supervision, management, administration, and I think that's me just identifying like my heart is needing a little bit more boundaries, I guess is the way I could say it, of not doing as much direct client care because it is, I mean, you know, as a tattoo artist, it's a lot of energy. It is very personal.
And I can only imagine too with therapy, it's an extra level.
Yeah, it's a lot. I think about individuals, any kind of people, profession, but like hairstylists, I'm sure also feel similarly. Like
Probably,
people just
yeah.
open up.
I feel like it's because of the intimacy of everything. We're so close together and like we're all up in each other's business.
Yes, in all kinds of ways. So I don't think I would choose a different profession. I don't have any regrets in it. I think I'm built for it. But I think I also, just need to want to be careful about how much of myself I put into my job because I now have beautiful, loving competition in my kids and my partner. So